Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. It is right now. You're right here. My name is Manuel, and it's my pleasure to welcome you. Today is day 52 of the show, and I have to congratulate you for making the best decision of the day to spend some time with me. Let's get started. Today's topic is birthright citizenship and how it is a quiet existential crisis. Birthright citizenship is at the top of the headlines today because the Supreme Court has taken up the case, and for the first time in history, a sitting president of the United States attended oral arguments. So let me start by saying something that a lot of people don't want to hear, or worse, pretend not to understand. We're having a debate right now about the 14th Amendment that, well, it's being framed as some kind of academic, legal exercise, a technical dispute, a matter of interpretation. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's not. This is about the future of the United States, period. And if you're treating it like anything less than that, you're either not paying attention or you're being willfully blind. Let's start with the argument that you keep hearing, particularly from leftists on this topic. They'll say something along the lines of like, well, maybe there's some abuse of birthright citizenship, but it's not that many people. Not that many. At a minimum, it's tens of thousands. And I'm being optimistic when I mention tens of thousands. So let me ask you something. Since when do we measure a threat based on when it starts instead of where it's going? Because last time I checked, every major problem this country has faced started small. Illegal immigration didn't start as a crisis. It was manageable. It was dismissible. It was not that many people until it wasn't, until it became millions, until even the experts will tell you they don't know actually how many illegal immigrants are here in our country today. So when someone says to you, relax, it's only tens of thousands, what they're really telling you is they're assuming the problem will stay frozen in time. But why would it? If something works, people do more of it. That's human nature. That's economics. That's reality. We already know there's such a thing as birth tourism. We already know there are networks that facilitate it. We already know there are cases of foreign nationals deliberately coming to U.S. soil, including U.S. territories, for the sole purpose of securing citizenship for their children. And then they leave, raising those children somewhere else under a completely different system, a completely different set of values. Now, here's where people get uncomfortable because this is where it stops being abstract. Take a step back and think strategically. You don't need millions. You don't need armies. You don't need tanks. What you need is time. What you need is patience. And what you need is a system that gives you something valuable for free: citizenship. Let me give you a very simple scenario. Let's take 10,000 people. 10,000. Place them strategically in a congressional district. You don't think that can swing an election? Of course it can. We've seen elections decided by far less than that. Now, scale that over time, over decades, across multiple districts, across multiple states. Now you're not talking about a loophole, you're talking about leverage. And here's the part that people really don't want to confront. If you have individuals who are American citizens on paper, but who are raised, educated, and ideologically shaped in countries that are openly hostile to the United States, what exactly do you think their worldview is going to be? What do you think their loyalties are going to be? What do you think happens when they enter critical sectors of our economy, our technology, our institutions, our government? You don't need conspiracy theories. You just need common sense. Now, let's talk about the 14th Amendment itself, because this is where the entire debate gets distorted. We're told over and over again that its meaning is settled, obvious, beyond dispute. Really? Because when that amendment was written, way back in the 1860s, there was exactly one issue on the table: former slaves, their children, their rights. That was the purpose. That was the context. That was the intent. Nobody, not one person, was debating birth tourism. Nobody was debating illegal immigration. Nobody was imagining a world where global travel makes it possible to fly in, give birth, and leave with a U.S. citizen. To pretend otherwise is not serious. And here's a historical fact that completely undercuts the idea that this was always meant to apply to anyone born on U.S. soil. If that were true, then Native Americans would have automatically been recognized as citizens under the 14th Amendment. But they weren't. Not fully. It wasn't until the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924, nearly 60 years later, that all Native Americans were granted U.S. citizenship. Think about that. Think about that. It was the 20th century before all Native Americans were granted U.S. citizenship, even though the 14th Amendment dates back to the 19th century. People born on this land, Native Americans, people born on this land for generations, Native Americans, were not automatically considered citizens. So the idea that the 14th Amendment was always understood to mean universal automatic citizenship for anyone born on U.S. soil, that doesn't hold up historically. So what happened? We took a principle designed for a specific historic injustice, and we expanded it through interpretation into something far broader. And now people have gotten so used to that interpretation that they think questioning it is radical. It's not radical. It's overdue. And I'm going to say something directly, and I want to address this specifically to my fellow Americans whose ancestors were brought here as slaves from Africa, because it needs to be said. This message is for my black brothers and sisters in the United States. If you are an American whose ancestors were brought here in chains, if your family paid the price for generations, if your birthright in this country was forged through suffering and sacrifice, why would you support a system that dilutes that birthright? Why would you support a system that hands out automatically what your ancestors had to fight and bleed for? That's not justice. That's not fairness. And it's certainly not sustainable. So yes, when the Supreme Court decides, it will matter a lot. A lot. Because this is not just about what the Constitution says. It's about what it means going forward, and whether we're going to continue pretending that a 19th century amendment automatically applies without limits to a 21st century world that the authors of that amendment could never have imagined. Original intent matters when interpreting the Constitution. Now, here's the takeaway I want to give you to really think about. You know, I always want to leave you with a lesson. The mistake people are making is evaluating this issue as if it's about numbers. It's not. It's about incentives. If you create a system where something incredibly valuable, in this case citizenship, is guaranteed under almost any circumstance, then the only question you should be asking is, what behavior does this system encourage? Because whatever it encourages, you will get more of, not less. And once you understand that, you stop asking, is this a big problem today? And you start asking the only question that actually matters. What kind of country does this system create tomorrow? All right. That's enough for today. We'll continue next time. And as always, be useful.